Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is O53 HW1 Quadratic Equations and Inequalities. And this is the homework. We're going to go over the first couple problems of the homework to make sure we feel comfortable with it and we're reviewing our work correctly. What we're doing in this lesson is that we're taking that quadratic stuff that we've been talking about and how we graphed our quadratic equations, creating all these parabolas on the graphs. So we practiced that quite a bit. And we're also going to add in the inequality stuff that we put in and talked about prior to. Where exactly to shade, what side of the line should I shade, what side of the wall should I shade, or what side of the parabola should I shade. So we're going to put those two concepts together. So number one here. The problem says zoom in a little bit easier. The problem is y is less than 2x squared plus 12x plus 20. Well, we're first going to type that into our graphing calculator. So we bring up our graphing calculator. We turn it on. We want to make sure first that is clear. And how we do that, we hit second, plus sign, 7, 1, 2, enter. And we're going to clear the calculator. Next, we hit our y equals button. And we're going to type in that equation that we're going to be working with. Which in this case, it's going to be y is less than 2x squared plus 12x plus 20. We hit the graph button to see what the graph is going to look like. So it's going to be a parabola in quadrant 2. So looking at our multiple choice, we got a couple parabolas here, but only 2 of them are actually in quadrant 2. So that actually helps eliminate some things. So I'm going to put the graphing calculator away. Let's zoom back out. We could see that A and C, they're not the correct answer because the parabolas are not in quadrant number 2. So we're down to C, B, and D. Something we could also tell between B and D is the vertex. The vertex in B is at -3, 3. And the vertex in D is at -3, 2. So if I look on the calculator, I could see that the vertex is at -3, +2. So my answer, we know for a fact, is already D. But let's talk about the inequality stuff just to make sure we understand that too. Let's say that both of these parabolas were the same, but one is still shaded on the inside of the parabola, or inside that U, and in option D is shaded on the outside. In order to figure out which side to shade, we're going to test one point. I always recommend testing that 0, 0 point, which is located. I'll use my marker. Located right here. That's that 0, 0 point. We're going to test it. Notice in problem D, or option D, it's in the shaded region, which tells us the truth. We're going to put in 0 into this equation. In for x and in for y. So we want to ask ourselves, when we put it in, 0 is less than 2 times 0 squared. Well, that's 0. Plus 12 times 0 is 0. Is 0 less than 20? Well, we know that's a true statement. And anytime they tell you, and when we test this point and we come out with a true statement, that's the side that we're going to shade. So we're going to shade the outside of this parabola, because that's where this point is. It's on the outside of this blue parabola. Now, if this came out to be a false statement, then you're going to shade the inside of the parabola, or in other words, the area that doesn't include the 0, 0 point. Let's try another one of these problems together. We'll do problem number 2. So problem number 2 says y is greater than or equal to 2x squared plus 8x plus 5. We're going to type that right into the calculator. We're going to hit y equals and clear. We're going to clear the previous problem. And we're going to type in the equation. 2x squared plus 8x plus 5. When we type that in, we hit the graph button. We see what the graph looks like. We can see the vertex is in quadrant 3, and it's going up. We see the 0, 0 points outside the parabola. To find exactly where that vertex is, we get second graph, and it's approximately at -2. And we can see -2, -3, we see -3. That's just where it stops going so far down, and so the numbers are going to start going back up with the y's. So my vertex for this problem is at -2, -3. So let's look at our options here of A, B, C, D. So we have a vertex at -2, -3. So option A, we know is incorrect, because that's not -2, -3. Option C is incorrect, because that's the vertex is at -2, -3. Option B is incorrect, because the vertex ain't in the right correct spot. But option D, the vertex is in the correct spot. So that's good. Now, if we had two of these options, like D, where it's actually graphed correctly, the parabola, one shaded on the inside, one shaded on the outside, we could test. But we kind of got lucky here. But still, we're going to finish off this problem as if we didn't get lucky. So we're going to try that 0, 0 point. We could see in option D that it's not shaded. So that means D is telling us that when we put 0 in for y and 0 in for x, it's going to tell us a false statement. So we put a 0 in for y. So y is greater than or equal to 5. So they're saying 0 is greater than or equal to 5. That's a false statement. That's why that 0, 0 point, this point right here, is not shaded. It's not in the shaded region. That's why D is correct for number 2. All right, let's try number 3 together. We have the parabola of y is less than x squared minus 8x plus 19. We type that into the calculator to see what it's going to look like. So we x squared minus 8x plus 19. We hit the graph button. We see that our graph is in quadrant 1. So we could look at our options here. A is not in quadrant 1, so we cross that out. C is not in quadrant 1, so we cross that out. B is not in quadrant 1, so we cross that out. Ooh, this is an easier worksheet than I thought. Looks like it's D in quadrant 1. Let's still test that 0, 0 point to see if it deserves to be shaded or not. So we put 0 in for y, and we put 0 in for x. So right now I'm working that equation in the top left-hand corner. So I put 0 in for y, and I put 0 in for each one of these x's. 0 squared is 0, minus 8 times 0 is 0. So 0 is less than 19. That is a true statement. Because it's a true statement that they're telling us, that means that 0, 0 point does deserve to actually be shaded. So that's why it's in the shaded region. And that's why we shade outside that parabola. Next up is number 4. Our equation is 2x squared plus 8x plus 12. So we put that into the graphing calculator. So 2x squared plus 8x plus 12. We hit the graph button, and we see it's in quadrant 2, our parabola. And the vertex is approximately -2, 4. So we look at this. We look at our options here, A, B, C, D. We can see it A, option A, it's in the correct quadrant. Option C is in the correct quadrant. Option B is not in the correct quadrant, so we could cross that out. And option D is not in the correct quadrant. So now this is actually a positive parabola, so the u is going to be going up. So we know C is incorrect too because the u is going down. That's a negative parabola. So our answer actually is A. Let's do the shading part too, because that's the whole purpose of our lesson. So we're going to shade either the outside of the parabola or inside the parabola. So we're going to test that 0, 0 point, meaning we're going to put 0 in for y and 0 in for the x's. And we're going to determine that 0 is less than 12. That is a true statement. Since it's a true statement, we're going to shade the region that has that 0, 0 point. So we're shading on the outside of this parabola. So that's why 4 is A. Now if you have any more questions, please come to Extra Help. I'll be happy to help you out with graphing the parabolas and the shading the correct side of the parabolas. Obviously with the multiple choice, it's a little bit easier because you could eliminate some answers right away. But I want you to know how to shade for when you have to shade the sections without any multiple choice. All right. Remember, if you have any questions, come to Extra Help. Make sure you finish the rest of the problems and hit the submit at the bottom. Have a good night.